Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm filming this video currently in a very hot and humid Sri Lanka, so if I've been looking a bit sweaty, that is the reason why. I have been solo traveling for the past 7 years and I'm currently 3 months into a solo travel trip. So I thought that in today's video I would share with you 11 solo travel tips. So if you're thinking about going on a solo travel trip or you're planning one at the moment, hopefully you'll find this video useful. My first solo travel tip is to do your research on the location that you plan on going to. It's a good idea to generally know a little bit about the country, the background, whether there's any vaccinations or medication that you might need to have beforehand or to take with you, how safe it is to travel as a solo traveler, whether there's any extra precautions that you might need to take, what the local transport is like, what accommodation is like, any activities that you plan on doing, maybe a rough itinerary or a rough plan of where you want to go in the country or the city that you're planning on visiting. My second tip is to buy a local SIM card when you arrive. You can usually do this before you even leave the airport. It's the #1 thing that I do nowadays every time I arrive in a new country. That just means that I have access to data, which is very important. It makes me feel safer. It means that I'm able to stay in touch with my family and my friends at any moment. I can search for things on Google at any moment. I'm able to call local numbers. It just adds that extra layer of protection and makes you feel safer as a solo traveler. My third tip is to learn the basics of the local language, any useful phrases. Definitely learn hello, thank you, please, etc., those basics. But it's also a good idea to just learn useful phrases like, how are you? How much does this cost? Things like that can really help you out when you're traveling to a different country where you don't speak their language. I've mentioned before in my other language learning videos that Memrise is my #1 favorite language learning app, and this video is very kindly sponsored by Memrise. Memrise offers so many different language courses for free on their app and their website, and to celebrate International Women's Day, they're adding female empowerment phrases to 6 of their existing languages. These phrases include things like, no means no, that's inappropriate, mind your own business. Phrases that I think are particularly useful when traveling, especially as a solo female traveler. Knowing how to say these phrases in the local language is an absolute game changer. And I've already said before that Memrise teaches you words and phrases that you actually go on to use, unlike other language learning apps that I've tried. Having these phrases embedded into the courses already is absolutely incredible. There have been so many times on my solo travel trips where I've encountered either locals or male foreigners, and there have been times where I wish I knew how to say in the local language or in their language, that is totally inappropriate, or please leave me alone, because saying in English sometimes just isn't enough, or if it's a local they might not understand it. And there have been many times where I wish I knew how to say this, and so the fact that Memrise is adding these into their courses is just so useful. It's so useful for travelers. Their courses are free, so I would highly recommend, if you're looking to learn a language, to sign up to Memrise's courses for free. I'll leave the link in the description box below, and I'm so grateful to be able to work with one of the brands that I have been using for so many years, and I absolutely love and stand for and recommend to anyone and everyone. Leading on from that is learning how to say no, and again, Memrise can help with this. Sometimes in certain countries and cultures where they're more hospitable or they're more fascinated with foreigners visiting, you can sometimes get a lot more attention and it can be quite overwhelming. And so learning how to say no is really beneficial. I found personally, for example, here in Sri Lanka, it's been quite intense, the amount of attention that you get as a foreigner. I've had people thrust their phones in my face saying, selfie, selfie, let's take a selfie. And it can get very overwhelming, especially as a solo female traveler. My 5th tip is to get travel insurance. You should not go on any trip, no matter how short or long, without travel insurance. Travel insurance also isn't that expensive. I'm very glad that I had travel insurance on this trip when I had to go to hospital twice because I broke my toe. So yeah, definitely get travel insurance, and also make sure with your travel insurance that if you're doing any specific activities, make sure that they are covered as well, because travel insurance won't always cover the more extreme, dangerous activities. My 6th tip would be to make sure that you have a document wallet folder full of all of your important documents. This should include things like a few photocopies of your passport, printed out travel insurance documents, visa if it's applicable, nowadays your proof of vaccination certificate, maybe a negative PCR test, your first couple of nights booked accommodation just so you have it in case you can't access it on your device, maybe any proof of travel vaccinations that you've had, anything like that. Have it in a document that you keep safe in your luggage. But I'd also recommend having all of these documents available digitally, available offline on your device as well, just so it's easily accessible in case you need it to show anyone, or for whatever reason you have it readily available. My 7th tip relates to safety, and the first thing I would say is to make sure wherever you are that you know the local emergency number in case anything happens. I would also recommend downloading offline maps so that when you don't have data, even if you've got a local SIM card, you know where you are at all times and you know your location. You can do this on Google using offline maps on Google Maps, or using an app like maps.me. This has honestly been a lifesaver. When I've been out and about, I've had absolutely no phone signal and I've needed to know where I am and how I can get back home. I would also just generally say as well, just be aware of your surroundings, trust your instincts, use common sense, don't walk around in secluded areas alone, don't walk alone at night. Be mindful of your possessions and your valuables. If you're out drinking, keep an eye on your drink at all times. Just take care, especially as a solo traveler, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for yourself. There's no one else who has an obligation to look out for you or to look after you. I would also recommend letting someone back home know where you're staying every single night. And it's also generally a good idea for someone back home to know where you are and what you plan on doing for the day, just so that someone knows where you are at all times in case something does happen to you. And I would also recommend not only letting someone back home know these things, but if you're out and about, if you meet people at a hostel or you make friends or wherever you're staying at, maybe just let them know where you're going or what you plan on doing so that someone does know where you are. Leading on from that as well, if you feel comfortable, maybe share your location with trusted friends or family back home as well, so that at any one time they can see where you are. My 8th tip relates to meeting people as a solo traveler, and your choice of accommodation is one way that can influence this. Typically, solo travelers will stay in hostels. Hostels is the #1 place where you can meet other people as a solo traveler. Hostels might also throw events or have activities on that you can join, so it's a very good way to meet people, to meet other travelers. Another good way to meet people and to get more of a local experience is to stay in a guest house or to stay in an Airbnb hosted by a local, where the local actually lives in the Airbnb too. For example, on my current trip, I've mainly been staying in homestays. This has meant that I've got to learn a lot more about Sri Lankan culture. I've had really good conversations with the locals. I've had amazing local food. My 9th tip is to go on day tours, because this is also a really good way to meet people. And sometimes as a solo traveler, it's just easier to book onto a tour where everything is just organized for you. You don't need to worry about things. And sometimes, as I say, it can actually work out cheaper. My 10th tip is to talk to people. As a solo traveler, it's very tempting to just stay on your phone, to just be scrolling on social media, seeing what your friends are up to back home, or to bury yourself in a book and avoid eye contact with people because you might feel embarrassed about being alone, you might feel embarrassed about eating out in a restaurant by yourself. Whatever it is, striking up conversations with people can lead to really great friendships, and it can be really amazing. In Sri Lanka, for example, I did a sunrise hike, and on the sunrise hike I struck up conversation with another solo female traveller, and we've actually stayed in touch, and I've seen her in several different places in Sri Lanka so far, and I'm sure that we will remain friends going forward. So don't be afraid to push yourself out of the comfort zone and just strike up conversations with people, because 90% of the time people are really willing and really happy to have a conversation with you, and you never know where it could lead. Could lead to a very beautiful friendship. My 11th tip for connecting with people and making friends as a solo traveler is to use social media. Social media is such a powerful tool nowadays. There are so many Facebook groups that you can join and search before you go to a specific destination, where you'll find lots of other like-minded solo travelers. There's also Instagram. I've connected with lots of you guys on Instagram who have been in the same places as me, and it's been so lovely to connect, and it's a good way to meet up with people and find people who are traveling around the same areas as you. And then another good app that I would also recommend, that I've spoken about before in other videos, is Bumble BFF. I found that using Bumble BFF while traveling has been very beneficial. It's been a very easy way to meet other people and connect with other travelers. So definitely utilize the power of social media to connect with others while you're traveling solo. And then my final travel tip is just to enjoy the freedom that solo travel brings, the freedom, the flexibility. Yes, it can get lonely. Yes, there are so many things that you need to think about because you are relying solely on yourself. Yes, you'll be spending a lot of time by yourself, and yes, there'll be other challenges that you'll be faced with. But at the end of the day, just enjoy the amount of freedom and flexibility that comes with traveling by yourself. You can decide what you want to do at any moment. You don't have to rely on anyone else. You make all the shots. You don't have to make any compromises or any sacrifices. Everything is in your hands. You are the sole decider of what you do with your days. So just honestly embrace the flexibility and the freedom that comes with solo travel, because it is incredible and it's so rewarding. I hope you found this video useful. If you want me to do more in-depth videos about solo travel, whether that's how I plan a solo travel trip or talking more about solo traveling, then please do let me know in the comment section below. Thanks again to Memrise for sponsoring today's video. If you're looking to learn a language, I would honestly highly recommend signing up to Memrise's free courses. I'll leave a link in the description box below. I know I've spoken about them so much in my other language learning videos, but I would genuinely highly recommend them. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you found this video useful and hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!